radio in 4 minutes. Did you know that your president is attempting a coup d'etat? He doesn't want to have a fair election, and he is insisting that there not be one. Hmm. You think I'm joking? Mm, I'm going to play for you the clips. Anyway, stay tuned. Tell your friends. Have them join us. We start in 4 minutes.
Public health history. That's probably easier said than done, as the United States has averaged about 53,000 new cases every day in the last week. Since some schools reopened for in-person learning, more than 2,000 students, teachers, and staff have been quarantined, and at least 230 positive coronavirus cases were reported in their districts. Around the world, millions more students could be at risk when they return to classrooms. A new report from the World Health Organization and the United Nations Children's Fund reveals more than 800 million children do not have access to basic hand washing at school. Meanwhile, Trump has doubled down on his inane belief that the virus will just go away and is willing to risk the lives of your children.
It's 99.995% of all fatalities are adults. Think of that, 99.95. That is extremely close to 100% of all fatalities are...
Okay, that's twice. Fatalities, I could get it if he stumbled once, but twice? Fatalities. Fatalities?
Adults. Children often have only mild symptoms, and medical complications are incredibly rare. Very, very, very rare.
And here at home, the numbers are going in the wrong direction. The U.S. on Wednesday reported nearly 1,500 new coronavirus deaths, making it the highest single-day death toll since the middle of May. The 7-day average has exceeded 1,000 for 17 straight days. Georgia reported 105 deaths, its second straight triple-digit day. North Carolina tied its highest daily death toll of 45. And Texas reported 324 additional COVID-19 deaths. The Energy Department has proposed rolling back 3-decade-old efficiency standards for showerheads following Donald Trump's repeated gripes about water pressure while washing his hair. I couldn't make this stuff up if I tried. The plan would change the federal definition of a showerhead to allow manufacturers to dramatically increase water use. Under rules Congress passed in 1992 in response to severe droughts, water flow from an entire showerhead is limited to 2.5 gallons per minute. The proposed change would allow manufacturers to apply that restriction to each nozzle on a showerhead. Wow. And yesterday, we told you that the DNC had released its schedule of speakers for next week's upcoming virtual Democratic National Convention. And we mentioned that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the most prominent and outspoken progressives in the Democratic Party, will have a speaking slot. Today, we learn she'll have just 1 minute. 1 minute, 60 seconds to deliver her remarks. Well, apparently AOC, undeterred, will pre-record her minute-long address, and she acknowledged the limited time slot, tweeting a poem by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays entitled, "I Have Only Just a Minute." I got good news. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com, and please click on that donate button.
Live from our nation's capital, it's the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Good afternoon, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine, and I'm going postal. That's right. I am going to defend the post office. Now, you wouldn't think the post office would need defending. More than 90% of Americans trust the post office. It's something that you would think that Republicans and Democrats, young and old, agree on. It's only been around for, 240 years or so. It's in the United States Constitution. In fact, it's the only government business, I believe, mentioned expressly in the United States Constitution. And it's been doing elections by mail since the Civil War. That's right. More than 150 years ago, soldiers on the front in the Civil War voted by mail. But the president is determined to put a stop voting, want people to vote. Statistics have shown that because Democrats believe in truth and Republicans are very resistant to science, that Democrats are taking far more precautions against COVID-19 than Republicans. Democrats are more likely to wear masks, practice social distancing, not attend crowded indoor places. Republicans, like a lot of them maybe in Sturgis, South Dakota, think they're immune to death. And in fact, I've played for you some of the really sad missives of people on Facebook, videos saying, I said don't wear a mask. I said COVID-19 didn't exist. I was wrong, cough, cough. And the person dies a few days later. You need look no further than Herman Cain, who made the life-threatening and ultimately deathly decision, lethal decision, to attend Donald Trump's Oklahoma rally, the one that everyone told him not to have. Well, it was sparsely attended, and that's good because the 6,000 or so who attended out of the 20 some odd thousand seats, whatever it was, are now dying. Many of them. Herman Cain is dead. He's dead because he believed Republican lies. Republicanism is fatal to your health. 166,000 Americans are dead so far from COVID-19. We are losing 1,500 people a day. The highest, by the way, ever. Now, that's not true in the rest of the world. Remember when we laughed? Well, laughed is a strong word. Let's just say we pitied Italy and Spain because they were having spikes, because they were having a total of 10,000 deaths over a period of a month. Yeah, well, we're doing that in more than a week. Yeah, shame on you, Italy. Who do you think can do more incompetent government? You think you're good at that, Italy? Just because you have several governments in a year, and just because you have, porn stars run for office and win? Yeah, we can beat you, Italy. We can be more dysfunctional. We can kill far more Americans than you can kill. We can give you vastly more incompetent government. That's indeed the Republican promise, right? Republicans do not believe government can work, and they're determined to prove it. And they're determined to prove it by running this country into the ground and killing innocent Americans. And you want to know where the lion's share of those Americans are coming from right now? Red states, red areas of states, Republican areas, conservative areas, rural areas. You understand why the cities got it at first. That's because, well, cities are more cosmopolitan. People travel abroad. We didn't really know what we were facing back in February and March. So yeah, the pandemic was bad at first in places like New York. Not now. No, now it's bad in Texas and Florida and Sturgis, South Dakota and Oklahoma. But interestingly, because Democrats accept truth, accept science, accept reality, accept the fact that yes, there are viruses out there and they can kill you, what we find is that in the primaries that have occurred since March, all you have to do is look at the Democratic primaries and the Republican primaries. Democrats are smartly voting ahead of time. Democrats are more likely, some 2/3 are voting absentee, voting by mail. And by the way, there are different ways to do this. We're going to get into this. You don't have to actually cast your absentee ballot by mail. In most states, I know in my home state of Virginia, you can simply bring your ballot into the registrar's office so that you know it's been received. That's actually what I'm going to do. So there's all kinds of ways to do it. But Democrats are largely voting ahead of Election Day. Republicans, believing that they won't die because I don't know, maybe they think if they believe in, they drink the Kool-Aid of whatever their particular political leader or religious leader is telling them, they're invulnerable to death. I heard that, by the way. Did you hear that? Do you remember those people going to that mega church early on, and the reporter there is wearing a mask and asking them, why are you here today? And aren't you worried about catching this disease? And everyone said, no, no, God will save me. Yeah, God doesn't save you when you're stupid. If you're so stupid that you jump off a building thinking God will save you before you hit the bottom, I'm sorry, the laws of gravity will probably win that one. Okay, almost certainly win that one. The same is true with COVID. Now, I admit it's more like Russian roulette than jumping off a building. It's not a 100% death sentence. It's more like sticking a gun to your head and hoping that the bullet is not in one of the 6 chambers that you use to shoot your skull. But why are you playing this game? In any event, because Republicans don't trust truth, don't trust science. We've talked about this in the past. We'll talk more about how this came to be about, because Republicans obviously used to be a very respected grand old party, the party of Lincoln, the party of Theodore Roosevelt, the party of Dwight D. Eisenhower. Yeah, well, now they're the party of conspiracy theorists and know-nothings, people who hate intelligence, literally hate the university, believe that knowledge is a bad thing, like the know-nothings of the 1840s. Worse, in fact, because the know-nothings called themselves know-nothings because it was a secret society, and they really meant that they were, when asked about the know-nothing party, they were supposed to say, I know nothing. But today, Republicans have done them one better. They're actually praising the lack of knowledge. They're praising the lack of science. But because of all this, people in red states tend to vote more often on Election Day. They think that they're immune to the virus because Donald Trump told them it would go away and played it down. And they, I guess, just don't believe the 166,000 Americans that are dead. They should believe it soon, though, because if they haven't had a cousin or a relative or a friend die, they will soon. But in any event, because Republicans are more often to show at the polls and Democrats are more likely to use mail-in voting, Donald Trump has decided to declare mail-in voting, which again has existed since the Civil War, suddenly to be awful. Now, a whole bunch of Western states, that's all they do. That's their system. California, Oregon, Washington, and even that liberal state called Utah, okay, not very liberal state, have entirely mail-in voting. Colorado does. And they've been doing it for several election cycles. And no one, Democrat or Republican, accused them of fraud. And the reason is quite clear. It's not like filling out a lottery ticket, right? You got your name, you got your social security number, you sign under penalty of perjury. In Virginia, you have to be witnessed. You have to have witnesses sign. Not only could you go to jail if you did the wrong thing, but you have to have a witness that would also go to jail if you, voted twice? You can't vote twice. When you vote once, they mark your name off. If they get 2 ballots with your name on it, not only is neither ballot counted, but you're about to go to jail for a very serious felony. So I'm not sure how mail voting is in danger. But after the break, what's fascinating about this is even though experts agree, Republican and Democratic, remember, Utah is hardly a liberal state, that mail-in voting is a perfectly normal way to vote. It has safeguards, just like in-person voting does. That Donald Trump realizes, your friend may be struggling, or has been told, what is true, which is that Democrats are more likely to use mail-in voting than Republicans. And so his response is shut down the mail, end the post office, make it impossible for the post office to get your ballots on time. And he's also working in the states to make sure that any ballots received after the election aren't counted. There's nothing Republicans hate more than democracy, and it's understandable why. It's because they know that the vast majority of the American people oppose them running America into the ground. So they could either change their policy and do things to actually help Americans rather than destroy us, or they could just end free elections. Donald Trump has made his choice. He's going to work to end free elections, and I'll show you how right after this.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this?
All right,
Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing?
Just another day in Trump land.
Mix these two things together?
Yeah, who needs free elections? It's not like it's America or anything.
What does this thing do?
Kids are curious.
I don't mean to pick on Italy, but the irony is that Italy's so much more superior than us, and they're not known as being the most competent in terms of European countries. Spain as well. England is a mess, but not a mess like us.
For more information on safe gun storage.
All right, folks, this is your break. We are in a commercial break, and we will be back in 3 minutes. Feel free, by the way, to share this broadcast. I've got a lot to do today. I'm going to be playing clips and all, but starting next week, and I know I've said this before, but this time I absolutely promise it, because we've done the test. We will have live phone calls, and you'll have a chance to talk back. If you're watching me from Virginia, you know that we have a very, very busy week in Virginia. We've got a special session coming up. That'll be next Tuesday, dealing with the COVID and the budget and police and criminal justice reform. If you want to write down the number, just so you have it for next week and tell all your friends, it's going to be 888-488-MARK. 888-488-MARK, which is on your phone is 888-488-6275. Just save it on your phone right now. Just say call in to Mark's show, 888-488-MARK. That's just because it's easy to remember, 888-488-MARK. But you can also write down on your phone, 888-488-6275. We'll be back on the air in 2 minutes.
StopRex.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2.
That's better.
This day in labor history, the year was 1892. That was the day miners in Tracy City, Tennessee, rebelled against the state's convict lease system. Miners had been forced to work side by side with convict labor. The convicts, overwhelmingly African American, were forced to live in deplorable stockade conditions. Their presence in the mines served to minimize paid labor, keep wages low, and
I paused Fox and it's not working now. I've got to start it over again. Hate that. Make it hard for you.
The same hours of work as the convicts. When they refused, the miners marched on the stockades where the convicts were housed. They released the convicts and marched them onto trains bound for Nashville, burning the stockades to the ground. The revolt at Tracy City followed armed uprisings of thousands of miners the previous year in nearby Bryceville and Coal Creek. Here, it is thought that the Knights of Labor leaders led miners to surround stockades, disarm guards, and
joining me right now is the President of the United States, Donald. And they were complaining about you yesterday, saying, well, he's not there negotiating. We want to get something done. The Democrats have put on the table this $3 trillion plan.
Counties releasing convicts when they could onto trains bound for Nashville. Miners were eventually arrested and convicted. But
something done. The Democrats have put on the table this $3 trillion plan.
Convict lease system 4 years later, making them one of the first southern states to do so.
Well, they brought in the entire state militia, heavy artillery and Gatling guns.
For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
The newspapers said they won a great victory, handed out medals for their bravery. They got the convicts out of the mines.
And now, the voice of reason in an unreasonable world, Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I am your host, Mark Levine. For the break, I explained why the president doesn't want mail-in voting. Obviously, that has nothing to do with fraud. Republicans and Democrats have used mail-in voting. Well, since Abraham Lincoln started it for Union soldiers in the Civil War. So, that Nudnik, Abraham Lincoln, what did he know? What did he know? Well, no one actually complained about mail-in voting from the 1860s until Donald Trump. Why is he complaining? Interestingly, prior to the pandemic, actually, Republicans tended to use mail in voting a little bit more often than Democrats did. Did you know that? Just because Republicans tended to be older voters, and older voters tended to use mail in voting more than younger voters. And you never saw Democrats try to stop mail in voting. But now, as I pointed out before the break, because Democrats respect the fact that the virus will kill you, respect the fact that this is very dangerous, that 166,000 Americans are dead. And by the way, by the fall, it will almost certainly be over 200,000. It may get close to 250,000 or worse. 250,000 people. More people have died unnecessarily in the first 6 months of 2020 than any 6 months in American history. You think you're having a bad year? You are. Yeah, you can pick any 6 months you want. World War II, Civil War. We're going back to rival the great pandemic of 1918. But I think we're going to have more deaths than even in that 6 month period. And we know a lot more about medicine now. To be fair, South Korea had its share of deaths this week. This week we had about 10,000 deaths, and South Korea had 23. And they are a sixth of our population. So I'm not saying we can prevent all deaths. I'm just saying we can prevent 99.99% of them. In any event, because Democrats recognize that the threat of death is real and that death is a bad thing, most of them are not going to the polls. We are voting absentee, mail-in ballots in record numbers. Republicans, more of them, are going to the polls. Now, to be clear, there are Democrats that go to the polls, there are Republicans that vote by mail. But if you look at the mix of voters, you'll find that on average, more Democrats are voting absentee than in person, and more Republicans are voting in person than absentee. Cue in Donald Trump. If he can only shut down the American post office, which has existed for 240 years, he can actually stop mail-in voting. So before, when it's a choice between running an institution that has worked for 240 years or shutting it down to attempt a coup to end an election to steal the presidency, which choice do you think Donald Trump would make? The Democrats, to their credit, as part of the coronavirus stimulus package, have insisted that a fair election be among that package, that voting by mail be part of that, that we fund the post office enough to pay for these ballots. And I personally called my representatives, and you should too, and insisted that there be no coronavirus deal without the promise of fair elections. As much as I think everyone needs $600 a week who's in need, people are starving, they're being evicted, the idea that we're going to end American democracy in order to get this money a little bit sooner, yeah, that doesn't appeal to me. American democracy is too important. But when Maria Bartiromo of Fox News, Maria Bartiromo, who asked Donald Trump, what is the sticking point in the negotiations on this vital coronavirus bill when so many Americans are suffering, so many are out of work, so many are in need of health care? Donald Trump makes clear, what's his real problem? His real problem is democracy.
And what specifically are they pushing for that is causing this breakdown in any deals? Nancy Pelosi said that the Democrats want to, and the White House are still miles apart on stimulus.
Well, they're right, and it's their fault. They want $3.5 billion for something that'll turn out to be fraudulent. That's election money, basically. They want $3.5 billion.
Wait, just stop for a second. Election money. Yeah, they want money for elections. Who are these Democrats that believe in democracy? Who are these Democrats that think that the Americans should have a right to vote? Think about what he's saying. Yeah, in a $3 trillion package, we want to give 1,000th of the money so that there's money for elections. And Donald Trump just doesn't believe in elections. I guess in that respect, he's very similar to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. But he goes on.
For the mail-in votes, okay, universal mail-in ballots. They want $25 billion for the post office. Now, they need that money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now, in the meantime, they aren't getting there. By the way, those are just two items. But if they don't get those two items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting because they're not equipped to have it.
So has the president ever put something so easily on the table, so naturally, so honestly? Donald Trump is very clear. Democrats are insisting on fair elections. It's a small portion of the budget. It's 1/1000th of the budget. And they want fair elections. And they want universal mail-in voting. And they can't have it without this money. And I'm refusing it because I don't believe in fair elections. And likely his people have told him that there are Democrats that, in general, if they don't have to, won't risk their lives to go to vote. They'll want to vote by mail. We may have to risk our lives, my friends, but I'll get to that at the end of the broadcast. Let's hear more what he has to say.
How bad it's been with this Carolyn Maloney scam. She scammed her way into an election. She probably lost, but they said mail-in ballots, it's all mixed up. Patterson, New Jersey, same thing. Yesterday, Virginia, 500,000 applications for ballots got sent to everybody. Nobody even knows. Got sent to dogs, got sent to dead people.
Okay, wait. Hold on. Lot to unpack there. So Maloney, Patterson, his complaint is that when the initial returns come in, the people at the polls are more likely to be Republicans, so Republicans do well, and then they count all the mail-in ballots, and because more Democrats are voting mail-in, the proper winner is held. Okay. No evidence of them going to dogs. In fact, interestingly on that, there was a guy, a Republican, who wanted to prove that you could send a ballot to a dog. So he filled out a ballot in his dog's name and he sent it in. The authorities, I believe this is in California, but I'll double check that because I did read this story, returned a letter to him telling him that they've referred the matter over to the California District Attorney for prosecution. And while they won't recommend pressing charges to put the man in jail for several years because they understand that he was trying to test the system, if he does it again, they will seek to prosecute. So not only was no ballot sent, the experiment was tried, it failed, and only due to the decency and kindness of the election officials, and I don't know if they should have been so kind. I think they maybe should have thrown him in jail, but whatever. They did. They said you get one free pass. If you try to do it again, you're going to jail. The only one who's lying about it, of course, is Donald Trump. When we come back in the next segment, I want you to hear Maria Bartiromo push back against Donald Trump and insist that America doesn't need free elections. Believe it or not, she says that right after this.
If you're worried your friend may be struggling, remember, you don't have to be there to be there.
You can say how are you or get a fake tattoo. You can ask with an app if it works for you.
All right, thanks. All right, next 4-minute break, folks. Feel free to chat. I'll go check the Facebook chat.
Chat on the game, kick off your flip-flops. You can ask on your couch while you binge watch. However you do it, you gotta ask a friend. And if they don't share, you can ask again. Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking.
Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the JED Foundation.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean, and there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
I'm Brenda Gazar, the host of Code WAC, your podcast on the state of America's broken healthcare system and how Medicare for All could help. Here's what we're talking about this time. Today, we'll talk about the obstacles in achieving Medicare for All on a national and state level. Michael Leidy has organized, advocated, and developed policy for single-payer Medicare for All nationally and in California for nearly 29 years. He's a founding fellow of the Sanders Institute. Most recently, he was the Healthcare Constituency Director for Bernie 2020. Welcome to Code WAC, Michael.
Thank you, Brenda. It's great to be here.
In our last pod, you talked about a reluctance on the part of national politicians to work toward Medicare for All. Why do you think that is?
I think it's a misunderstanding of the politics. I think there's an ideological commitment to a private insurance system. And I think there's a donor network, both at the political level and at the philanthropic level through foundations that are simply bought into an institutional politics that says the private sector is better. We can't win it, right? We can't overcome the power of the healthcare industry. So we're just going to come up with, much more complex solutions as a workaround. And it's reinforced by Democrats who support it but don't fight for it. It's reinforced by think tanks that are on the liberal side that don't promote it. And so you basically got, what I say is, if everyone who said they supported Medicare for All actually worked to enact it, we would win it tomorrow. So we have a political problem, a problem of political will.
Got it. Thanks so much, Michael. Get the full Code WAC story on progressivevoices.com and on the PV app. You can also listen to our episodes at www.heal-ca.org. This podcast is powered by Heal California, uplifting the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country.
All right, starting up in seconds.
Back to the aggressive progressive, Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. It has been widely reported in the Washington Post and the Hill, on CNN and everywhere, that Donald Trump is threatening to end mail-in elections, to defund the post office in order to keep people from voting this fall. And because that's a really extreme charge, I didn't actually want to go to the source. I generally trust the Washington Post, sure, and the Hill and CNN. But the source, ironically, was Fox Business News. The source, because Donald Trump doesn't like to go very much on channels that challenge him, he went to the friendliest host he could find, Maria Bartiromo, of not just Fox News, but Fox Business News. And it's hard to imagine a source more toady-like to Donald Trump than Fox News, but Fox Business is there for you. And she says, hey, what's the sticking point? What's the problem? And Donald Trump mentions one and only one problem he has with a $3 trillion bill. And that's that 1,000th, he's 0.1% of the funding, 0.1%. 99.9% he doesn't complain about, but 0.1% is going to election law, to election funding, specifically to the post office. The post office, in order to deliver mail-in ballots in time. Now, if you don't know, there is a new Postmaster General, and that Postmaster General, named LaJoy, not much joy for Postmaster General LaJoy, but Louis DeJoy is not only a massive Republican donor, he also owns tens of millions of dollars in rival delivery services. That's right. The man owns parts of UPS and FedEx. So he doesn't really mind killing the post office. In fact, he enriches himself from that. And if you say to yourself, well, Mark, that can't be. That's a clear conflict of interest. That's clearly illegal. You don't understand today's Republican Party. They don't mind if you steal taxpayer dollars and stick it in your pocket, they're fine with that. Now, to be fair, they don't want someone struggling to pay the rent to get another $100 or so to feed their children to eat. They let the poor kids die. But if you are a billionaire and you want to stuff $50 million in taxpayer money in your pocket just by killing the post office, yeah, they're fine with that. And that's what Louis DeJoy, our new Postmaster General, wants to do. So he's setting up ways to reduce service, right? That's what we need. God, there's nothing America needs more than reduced service, reduced mail service, particularly around the time of an election. So Trump mentions this. He says this is the only problem with the election. They want this money for the post office so they can have fair mail-in elections. And Maria Bartiromo, she gets Donald. She's incensed on his behalf. And I was about to play the clip again, but Fox Business wants me to play this commercial. So I'm going to play the damn commercial for 5 seconds, and then I'll play the clip again. Let me get it set up again. All right. We'll turn down the commercial so you don't have to hear it. Whatever, it's some clicking. It doesn't really matter. All right, commercial over. Boom, I'll go right back to where I was.
Is the president of the
It's amazing they do that, even though I just paused it for 4 minutes. But all right, here we go. Here's where we were.
The dead people. Nobody has no idea what happened. They said, we made a mistake. I'm sorry. 500,000 ballots sent in Virginia. How do you feel about Virginia?
Now, wait a minute. How do I feel about Virginia? I'm a state delegate from Virginia. I proudly represent the people of Arlington, Alexandria, and Fairfax in Virginia. How do I feel about Virginia? I think 500,000 ballots? That's not enough. There are 8 to 8.5 million people in Virginia. That's 1/16 of us. 8 to 8.5 million people in a statewide election, we can get 5 million votes. That's a tenth of the voters. If we have 500,000 mail-in ballots in Virginia, I say that's not enough, people. Get your mail-in ballot today. I have put mine in. I've put mine in. I'm one of those 500,000. That's only a tenth of Virginia voters. 500,000, how do I feel about that, Donald? I feel it's not enough. And all of us need to work to get our mail-in ballot. 1/10 is not enough.
Going in there and you have 500,000 phony ballot applications. And
you calling my ballot application phony, Donald? How do you know?
This is all over.
So this is what's holding it up. They want.
No. That's only one aspect of it.
This is what's holding up money for the American people. They want mail-in votings and they want money for the post office. This is one of the sticking points that's holding back stimulus for Americans during this coronavirus.
The
Democrats
that's one
wanting
of them.
money for the post office for mail-in voting.
So you hear how incensed she is? Wait. The Democrats are saying, this is Maria Bartiromo, the Democrats are saying that if you don't allow people to vote in an American election, you won't get your stimulus package? Yeah, that's what the Democrats are saying. You can hear how angry she is. How dare the Democrats insist on democracy? What do you think America is? Some kind of republic? Some kind of government of the people, by the people, and for the people? Some kind of government where we, the people, are in charge? How dare they think that? Don't they know international corporations are in charge? Don't they know that when Donald Trump gave a $2.5 trillion taxes, a lot of it went to foreign corporations? That's what matters. We have to make sure that Saudi sheikhs get more money. That's more important than letting Americans vote. It's not like American democracy matters, she's saying. We don't give a damn about democracy. Take your coup, stay in power forever, ignore American democracy. It doesn't matter. Listen to how angry she is. How angry she is that Democrats would insist on democracy. I'm sorry, Maria. I'm sorry you live in a republic. And if you don't like the republic, I assure you there are many dictatorships you can move to. And I hope you do soon. But we'll go on with the interview.
That's right. How would you like to have, Maria, how would you like to have $3.5 billion for mail-in voting? Billion. So if you didn't have it, you wouldn't. You know how much money that is? Nobody has any idea. People, $3.5 billion.
Yeah, you know how much money that is? It's 1/1000th of the proposal, which is $3.5 trillion. It's 1/1000th. It means out of ever $999 going to other things, we're leaving $1 so that we have a fair election. Yeah, I don't know, Donald. Is democracy in America worth 1,000th of the package? Is it? Is it? I mean, I get it. You hate democracy 99.9% of the time. Do you really hate it 100% of the time?
They want $25 billion for the post office because the post office is going to have to go to town to get these ridiculous ballots in. You know, there's nothing wrong with getting out and voting. You get out and vote. They voted.
There's nothing wrong with getting out and voting. Sure, there's a good chance you're going to die. But you know what? Just die. Our president says, I've already killed 166,000 of you. So another 100, 200,000 more will die. It's not like your lives have any meaning. Go ahead and die. And what's interesting is, because the coronavirus doesn't distinguish between Republicans and Democrats, Donald, you're not just killing Democrats out there. Actually, most of us are smart enough to put in our ballots absentee. You're going out and killing Republicans. You're killing more of your people than ours. I know you don't give a damn about Democratic Americans. I know you don't think that liberals have any voice. I know you hate all the blue states, including your own state of New York. I get that. I get that. I know you don't give a damn about blacks or Latinos or women or gay people or, well, just about anyone. But it's your people that are going to die. Just like you killed all those people in Oklahoma, including Herman Cain, whose blood is on your hands. Now, I didn't love Herman Cain. I didn't agree with his politics, but I didn't wish the man dead. I would never have taken actions to kill him like you did. Yeah, what's the harm? What's the harm with in-person voting? Well, that's the harm. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. If you want to go and vote in person and wear a mask and wear gloves and stay 6 feet distance, God bless you. Good luck to you. I know it sort of depends on the state where you are. But if you can go ahead of time, if you can do a mail-in ballot, or, and I should say this, lots of states, and every state's different, but I know in my home state of Virginia, you can actually vote in person but taking a major risk. And in fact, that's what I plan to do. I have ordered my mail-in ballot, the one that Donald Trump called phony. I'm one of the 500,000 Virginians who did that. But when it comes in, and it comes in mid-September, I'm going to personally hand it over to my local registrar, just because I don't want it to get lost in the mail. I'm going to hand it over to them personally. I know they've taken tremendous precautions, plexiglass, requiring of mask wearing. They're even, by the way, discarding pens that are used to cast a ballot after each vote. They're discarding the pen. There's hand sanitizer. I'm going to make sure that my vote is counted. But the way Donald Trump is so blasé with people's lives, so uncaring about the hundreds of thousands of Americans he's killing. And the irony is that's his whole party right now. Anyway, I'll get to the end of it right after the break.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right.
All right, last break, folks. If you want to write in questions or comments, I will respond to them. And then next week we will have phone calls. Let's see if there's any more of this interview I want. I don't know if there is.
World War I and World War II, and they should have...
Yeah, whatever. It happened in the Civil War. I think that's enough. I can't stand this so long. I could talk about Kamala Harris. Let's end on a...
America, your children have an amazing superpower. That's right. They can help save lives by simply washing their hands. Just 20 seconds of thorough hand washing after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside can help fight against the dastardly spread of germs. Armed with only soap and water and hands, your superhero can protect you, your family, and everyone out there in America land. Amazing! Find out more.
Hey everyone, welcome to Forward. We are a new kind of doctor's office that's doing primary care differently.
He was the heart of
Democrats are cheering
taught you our history.
for Hill.
He
Is Nancy
your first
about your
He was the
suggested
best
that you
backyard DJ around.
Harris
And every time he tell a story, he
in
told the
2017.
room. But now more than ever, he may feel alone. Today, older adults and their loved ones are struggling to connect, in a time when connection has never been more important. But there is something we can do. Embrace our older loved ones through StoryCorps Connect. With StoryCorps Connect, you can honor seniors remotely with an
Back
interview about their life.
in
Every
3.5
interview will be
minutes.
archived at the Library of Congress, becoming part of American history, so that years from now, future generations can listen in.
All right, Grandpa. What's one piece of advice you have for me?
Just 3 words, sweetheart. Live with courage.
The man that had the best stories still has plenty of stories to tell. So connect virtually and
but
share the
I'm
conversation
a
of a
little
lifetime
skeptical of
at
those.
StoryCorpsConnect.org/AARP.
It's
Connect,
okay.
honor,
I don't
share.
love them.
StoryCorps Connect.
Because
A
I'm.
message from AARP, StoryCorps, and
Yeah,
the
I'll
Ad
talk
Council.
about it. Look, I mean, again, it's better than nothing, to be sure.
America.
During today's COVID-19 crisis, the PR departments of every brand name corporation
Well, I
are
guess
running
the people
slick
are doing that in
ads,
Michigan.
nobly proclaiming, "We're all in this together." But simultaneously, the lobbying departments of those corporations are ignobly using the public's focus on the health crisis as cover for
Yeah,
selfishly
see,
grabbing
Connecticut
government
towns
favors.
complaining having outside
One of the
available
grabbiest
voters
special
around the
interests
clock
are
isn't
well-off
safe.
corporate and parochial
That's the
private
only
schools,
question.
where students from some of America's wealthiest families get their education. For years, these private
I
entities
think
have
the
been
safest way
lobbying
is to hand it to your
relentlessly to make
registrar.
taxpayers finance their schools, even though they
I was
usually
looking
have
for sort of a greatest
ideological or
hits of Kamala
religious
Harris,
curriculum, and
Kamala
some even
Harris
share the
at
extremist
the
view that public schools
her
should be
her
eliminated. That
great
extremist nook
speech.
is where Betsy DeVos resides.
Trying to get
She's
a
a
video of that.
multi-billionaire heiress and longtime funder of far right-wing causes. Chosen by Trump to run
Heavy
America's
on prayer
education
speech.
department,
I'm looking
she's
for
been
it.
trying to run our schools straight into private hands, but with little success. Then
Right.
along came the COVID federal
Here we go.
relief package, including funds to help meet the education needs of low-income students in hard-hit public schools. Hallelujah,
And I've
shouted
had a lot of
DeVos,
titles over my
grabbing the
career.
coronavirus
The
as a way
most.
to advance her agenda. In May, she
Yet we have
issued
a
an edict
president
requiring local
who
public school
carries
districts
even
to
more
divert millions of the
difficult
relief
to
dollars
solve.
from their disadvantaged
That
students,
proves that the past
forcing
few
them to
years
share
do
their
not
allotment
represent
with even the richest
to
private
be
schools.
happened in Charlottesville 3
Astonishingly,
years ago
Trump's
today.
hardy education secretary rationalized her directive as a
Okay,
matter of
I got some
economic
greatest hits. I
fairness,
hope they're good.
piously
Haven't
informing
heard a chance to
locals
hear
that
them
they
yet.
must not discriminate against the rich. This is Jim Hightower saying, luckily, DeVos's share with the rich dictum does not have the force of law, and public schools are fighting back. For information, go to National Coalition for Public Education at ncpecoalition.org.
Back to the aggressive progressive, Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I am your host, Mark Levine. I want to end on a happier note. You know, speaking about Donald Trump all the time can lead to, well, tremendous stress, heartburn, heartache, depression. It's interesting. Depression is way up across America due to COVID-19. Of course, in other countries where they've dealt with it responsibly, they're not having anywhere near the death toll or the virus toll that we have had. So this sort of depression that is very common now in America is much less common there. But if there is anything to get you out of depression, to get your juices flowing, to get you happy again, it was the wonderful speeches that, by the way, not just Kamala Harris, but Joe Biden gave. I think the speech of his life, if you saw it yesterday when he announced her as his nominee. But I want to play just sort of some best hits from Kamala Harris's speech, just a minute, to if you missed it, to get a flavor of how good she was, and well, why I think she's a perfect choice for Vice President of the United States. Let's listen in.
And I've had a lot of titles over my career, and certainly Vice President will be great, but Mamala will always be the one that means the most. America is crying out for leadership. Yet we have a president who cares more about himself than the people who elected him. A president who is making every challenge we face even more difficult to solve. We need more than a victory on November 3rd. We need a mandate that proves that the past few years do not represent who we are or who we aspire to be. Joe likes to say that character is on the ballot, and it's true.
When he saw what happened in Charlottesville 3 years ago today, he knew we were in a battle for the soul of our nation. And together with your help, that's a battle we will win.
So that just gives you a little flavor, talking about being a mom, very sweet, very gentle, very loving. She also talked very lovingly about Joe Biden's son, Beau Biden, who recently died of a brain tumor. Wonderful, wonderful Attorney General of Delaware who got to know Kamala Harris when she was the Attorney General of California, and talked very affectionately about Beau Biden, and in doing so, certainly harkened back to Joe Biden. But we also saw a fighter, a real tough person, someone who you may remember, and I remember with great affection, in her tearing apart Kavanaugh and Bill Barr, who basically made sure that officials answered her tough questions, and they clearly couldn't, and showed themselves to be incapable and incompetent for the job. She was very good at that. One of her best lines, which wasn't in this news clip, unfortunately, but one that I really enjoyed, was which she pointed out the fantastic economy that President Obama and Vice President Biden bequeathed to Donald Trump. Remember, we were in the greatest recession since the Great Depression. Now, that used to be true. It's no longer true because currently in 2020, we're in the greatest recession since the Great Depression. And frankly, at points, it was worse than the Great Depression in terms of the immediate decline. So in 2008, under George W. Bush, that was the worst we had faced. Now, under Donald Trump, it's even more bad. But remember that Biden and Obama, of course, pulled us out of that recession to a roaring economy. And Kamala Harris pointed out that Donald Trump inherited that great economy, ran it into the ground with the worst unemployment again since the Great Depression. But as she said, and I wish I had the clip in front of me because she said it so much better than I'm about to, Donald Trump runs into the ground everything he inherits. An obvious reference to the fact that he inherited millions, hundreds of millions from his father and managed to go bankrupt. How many times? 4 or 5 times. So she's tough, and she's smart, and she's competent. And the thing about her is, let's face it, Republicans never like to see a woman or a black person achieve much. And so they're always looking for tokenism. They're always looking to say, oh, well, you chose someone who really hadn't achieved much. Kamala Harris won 3 statewide elections in the largest state in the United States. Some 1/7 of the American people have already voted for her 3 times, twice as Attorney General of California, once as a California senator. Indeed, Kamala Harris, I'm sure, in one election, got more votes than Joe Biden did his entire career until he ran for vice president, just because Delaware is such a tiny state. Delaware being one of the 3rd or 4th smallest state in the United States, and California being the largest. So she did it on her own. She won tough elections in the nation's largest state. She's had to have executive responsibility. That's what an attorney general does. They have to design basically an entire state's legal system. She's had legislative responsibility, including oversight, really good, tough oversight I mentioned. But she's also someone who is a child of immigrants, a child of an Indian mother and her Jamaican father. And while she certainly is black and a graduate of Howard University, the fact that she'll be the first Indian American ever to hold high elective office, national elective office, will be amazing and good for the Indian American community. What she's shown, what Kamala Harris shows, is that, well, what do they say about Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire? Ginger could do everything Fred could do, but backwards and in heels. Kamala's tough, and she's smart, and most importantly to me, she's got heart. She's got a big progressive heart. And I'll tell you something that I also really like about her. I know that Kamala Harris will tell Joe Biden behind the scenes what she thinks in no uncertain terms. And I want that in a vice president. There were a few times in the Obama administration where I thought, honestly, Obama got it wrong and Biden got it right. I thought that was true, for example, in foreign policy. I also definitely thought it was true when it came to marriage equality, when Joe Biden came to the right conclusion before Barack Obama did. And a good, loyal vice president tells the president behind the scenes her honest, frank opinion. When Joe Biden introduced Kamala Harris, he said that the only thing that Barack Obama told him when he was going to be vice president, Joe Biden, what did he want? And Joe Biden said, here's what I want, Barack. I want that when you're making a tough decision, and you've heard from everyone in the room, I want to be the last person in the room you talk to before you make that decision. And Barack said, deal. And now Kamala has been promised the same thing by Joe Biden. Kamala Harris will be the last person in the room Joe Biden talks to. That doesn't mean she'll necessarily get her way. And of course, a good, loyal vice president, if you don't get your way, needs to be quiet and serve, barring some catastrophe. But most of these things, they're not a question of values. Kamala Harris shares Joe Biden's values. They're questions of strategies, tactics. There are different ways to resolve difficult, tough, moral, political, legal, ethical questions. I like that she'll be in the room. And when she's in that last room, she's representing people in America who've been, let's face it, treated as second-class citizens for too long. The very people that Donald Trump hates so much, immigrants, black people, women, strong women, intellectuals, smart people, all the people Donald Trump hates, all the people, she's from California, right? She was the district attorney of San Francisco. Kamala Harris represents a progressive voice in the room. Now, I'll be the first to admit she's not as progressive as Bernie Sanders. I'm okay with that. Personally, I'm not as liberal as Bernie Sanders. I'm not a socialist. I believe in a mixture of socialism and capitalism. She can be tough. She was tough. She was former attorney general. She's going to get some pushback from the left for how tough she was. But I think between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we are going to get the most progressive ticket that we could get and win and beat Donald Trump. I'm proud to have her there. I'm excited to have her there. I'm excited that black women who in the last election voted 94% for Hillary Clinton will get a voice. She will be the first black woman vice president, and I'm confident she will win with your help. But that's not why she's there. That's a part of it. But that's the part that everyone talks about. I want to talk about her intelligence, her grit, and her heart. Because she's going to be an excellent vice president, just like I think Joe Biden is going to be an excellent president. And unless Donald Trump manages to achieve his coup, they will be. One last word out there, if you're a postal worker or you know of one. I'm going to ask you, people, loyal people of the post office, as this election comes close, ignore every other piece of mail. Every other one else's mail can be delayed a week. That's fine. You get those election ballots in on time. Do it for your country. This is Mark Levine, signing off.